Right. So this is the fundamental question of politics these days. I mean, there are a couple, but one of the long-running ones is what's the role of government? And if you're on the left, you believe on economic matters the government should have a very active role, and if you're on the right, you believe it should not. And I think the most compelling view that I've heard is the government has an essential role to play in creating the platform on which all this activity takes place. Mm-hmm. The government should not then be a player in the field. And so I spent 3 months in Asia last year doing research for the book. And so Chinese capitalism was seen as very successful until last summer, when the stock market went down. But, right. So authoritarian, it's basically where the government sets up the playing field and owns most of the big companies and can change the rules to favor its companies. That's a really bad game to be playing, and lots of people don't want to play. So I'm not a big fan of government being a player on the field. I think government must set the rules, set the standards, run the courts, and you do need antitrust. So, I mean, there are a number of areas where you do need the government to play a role. But ultimately, it comes down to how much do you value decency, sort of protecting people, and how much do you value dynamism, encouraging creative destruction. Yeah. Whenever I have sort of had an intuition just from like reading the newspaper, and then I talk to a libertarian, they'll explain, oh no, here's why that's totally wrong. Then I'll talk to somebody on the left, oh no, here's why that's like, we are so limited and biased in our thinking. These things are so complex, you can't just like read the newspaper and figure it out. And again, you need to bring people with different views together with some norms of civility to hash this out. And so universities should be where that happens. But you don't have, you do have libertarians in the economics department, so that's good. But outside of that, you don't have the kind of viewpoint diversity that we need to figure out the most important questions we're facing, like how do you get capitalism working well so that we get growth that is widely shared and then we're all better off? Like, that's what we need to figure out. And because the universities are getting so orthodox, not good at it.
Yeah, so that's what I've asked a couple of my guests that I've had on lately, like Yaron Brook from the Ayn Rand Institute. I asked them, does capitalism just need some better people to sell the ideas? The ideas have become uncool. There's as I'm discussing this with you, there's this feeling, you talk about capitalism, it feels old and antiquated, but if we were at a Bernie rally and you started screaming about socialism, everybody would be thrilled. That's a real problem.
No, that's right. So capitalism has always had certain problems. And when I say capitalism, what I mean is just a free market society, mm-hmm. where basically the means of production are not owned by the government generally. And so you have to keep separate whether the government plays a heavy-handed role, and then the question of whether there's a safety net. And a lot of people confuse those two. So almost everybody believes there should be a safety net. So everybody likes Scandinavian capitalism. And they think that Scandinavia is socialist. And it was briefly. But the socialism part didn't work very well for them. It was incredibly inefficient. They had huge budget deficits. So they were able to shift to a very free market society with a really good safety net in which government has a role in the safety net.
Right.
So if you keep those two apart, then you can get people to say, okay, yeah, we do need to give people security. And the left is correct about that. In America, people won't quit their job because they'll lose their health insurance. And so we're supposed to be this nation of entrepreneurs and risk takers, but we're all afraid of losing our health insurance. Now Obamacare has helped that. But in Scandinavia, I hear, going there next, in Scandinavia, people are happy to quit their job and try something new because the safety net's so good that they're not worried.
So basically that's the trade-off, that they pay very high taxes, but the safety net exists, and then they've sort of separated that from how businesses are able to operate.
Yeah, that's right. You have to have a dynamic business environment. You have to. In this world, if you don't, you're France, you're Italy, you're going down. I don't really see much of a future for Southern Europe. So you have to have a dynamic business environment. But capitalism always has creative destruction. The reason why productivity goes up and up and up is basically we're able to do more with fewer workers, and so people get fired. That's the way we make progress. But you can't just fire them and leave them there. And in Scandinavia, they do a lot of job training. They take care of them. So I think there are a lot of forms of capitalism. Scandinavian capitalism is usually held up as the best one. Ours has problems. And this election should be a time that we talk about them.